Hello, and welcome to Rock Your Block. In today's segment of First Home Alliance, I am your host, Larry Laws, here to share with you the wonderful things First Home Alliance is doing in the community and to answer questions you may have to empower you with the knowledge to help make your dream of homeownership a success. On today's episode of First Home Alliance, we will be discussing financial planning. Today, we're inviting a special guest back for the second time on our show. He's an expert in the field of finance. He has over 20 years of experience in finance and retirement planning. He's a certified mortgage planning specialist. He's also a business development coach and motivational speaker. Presently, he serves as a financial advisor for First Financial Group, and he's here today to talk to us about financial planning. Please welcome to our show, Randy Jones.
Thanks, Larry.
Randy, well, I've known you for
Quite
a
some
time now.
Yeah.
Yes. For the last 5 or 6 years, I've known you mostly as being a senior loan officer, expert in mortgage lending.
Right.
But I understand that there's a lot more knowledge that you have. And here today, I want you to share some of that knowledge with our audience. And it's about financial planning, and you're a financial advisor. I understand there are some misconceptions. Could you share some of those with us, some misconceptions on financial planning?
Sure, Larry. I think a lot of times when people think about financial planning, they quickly jump to, where should I put my money? How should I invest my money? What is the market doing? What's going to be good as far as a mutual fund or things like that? And a big challenge that people don't realize, there are more people who make mistakes because they are trying to invest from their income versus save from their income and then invest from a portion of their savings. So I would think the biggest misconception is that you have to first become a great saver before we can even talk about the beginning steps of becoming a great investor.
Okay. In setting up those savings, what's a recommended way to actually get into, some people, we're used to spending, everything that we get. And so how would you suggest that we start a savings plan?
Well, I think what you first have to do, most people work sort of backwards when it comes to their cash flow. If you were to think about your life and the way that, or your financial life from a balance sheet perspective, meaning that one side talks about all the assets that you have, another side talks about all the liabilities that you have, but the foundation behind them or below them would be your cash flow. Now, most people think of, I make a certain dollar amount and then after taxes come out, that's my net income. And then I'm going to apply a certain portion towards any type of debts that I have. And if there's anything left over, then I'll try to save a little bit after that. And then if there's still a little bit left over, I'll try to, figure out how I'm going to manage the rest of my life. Probably the best way that we need to change that process in beginning to save or starting a savings plan is to first manage our spending from the point of when we make our income, we need to first pay ourselves first. And a lot of times you often hear people make reference to that, but how do you do that? Because we only have a certain amount of money that we truly can spend every month. Okay. And a lot of people would make the comment that if I had more money, I'd save money. But most likely, history shows that as we have more money, we spend more money. Correct. So first thing that we have to do is carve a little bit off the top. We want to be, preferably at 15 to 20% of our gross income, saving that first, and then living the rest of our lifestyle from that. So I always tell my clients, if you want to be able to start a good savings plan, let's just first start with maybe $100 or $200, taking it off top, and then let's live on the rest of the money that we have. That way, it makes it a whole lot easier versus making spreadsheets and things like that.
Okay. And we mentioned about that savings and paying yourself first. What would you suggest in reference to that 15%? Go ahead and buy some stocks, or what would you do? Someone just getting started, what would you encourage them to do with that amount that they're pulling off the top?
Well, that's a great question, because a lot of times people don't realize, you think about investing money. But there are really only 3 places that you can put money. You can put money in a taxable world, you can put money in a tax-deferred world, and then you can put money also in a tax-free world. Now, if you had your choice, where would you put your money?
Tax-free.
Exactly. Most people would choose tax-free, but most of the time, where do we have our money today?
And,
The taxable and the tax deferred one. Most people have, when it comes to saving money, they're saving, anywhere 5 to 10%, and primarily in their retirement plan, 401ks or TSPs and things like that. Not because it was something wrong, but that's all that most people have been told. If everybody would like to be in a tax-free world, sometimes they need to have somebody educate them on how to get there. You have a lot of advisors who talk about rates of returns as well as building a legacy for their family, but no one is really taking time to show the public or their clients how to step-by-step going about that. So the first thing that I would say is after we first describe or carve off a little bit just to start saving, because the habit of saving is the key to it. It is the one controllable thing that you have when it comes to your money. The investments in markets and things like that, they're all, the unknown, and we're guessing and we're sort of gambling. But being in control of being able to save and then picking where you save it, I would say first, put a little bit in each one of those buckets. If you had taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. And I guess later on, some of those options you could think about municipal bonds or other products and things like that as well.
Okay. And so how would you explain the difference between savings and investing?
Outstanding. I think there's a misconception when it comes to the difference between saving and investing. Most people think that I'm saving in my 401k. It is a type of saving strategy, but the way that I classify saving and investing, so here's an example. My grandmother made $9,000, a year, and she was able to save from that, and she always had money, and she didn't have any fancy accounts and things like that. So I always show a person, if you were to save 15 to 20% consistently at home in a drawer, you would most likely have more money than most people would have invested. Because the one thing that you're guaranteed is that there isn't any loss as long as you don't lose your house.
Okay.
There isn't any risk of markets ups and downs. You won't have a great rate of return, but it's the habit of saving that really creates the wealth for people. So being able to save your money first versus investing. Now, investing is where we're sort of putting our money at risk. If we were to save it at home, we're guaranteed the only risk is really, whatever could happen to our house.
Correct.
But I think the difference in investing is trying to put your money at risk, and then you have to deal with the person's risk tolerance. Am I an aggressive person, or am I a really conservative person, or do I fit somewhere in the middle in there? So I think that's probably a big difference in there. There is the potential of great growth, but there's also the potential of great loss when it comes to investing.
Okay. And
go ahead.
Yes, and so also in some of these savings, and so what would help me know for sure if it is a saving plan and it's a safe environment that I'm saving in?
Good savings plans are ones that you really have some guarantees on, minimize your loss or potential for loss. A lot of times people may make comments that they're against putting their money in the bank because they allow the bank to use their money and they only get 0.1%. But I think you need to be liquid a little bit in our life, because the one thing that is consistent in our life is that life is unexpected. And how do we deal with that? The only way that we can do that is to make sure that we have, some type of reserve set aside. So putting money in your savings account in the very beginning is probably the first place that you would want to start to save your money before we get to a point of investing. Like I said, most people try to invest from income, but they should be saving from income, and then we're going to invest from savings.
Okay. And so what would make up a good, successful plan, a good, successful financial plan?
One, getting a very reputable advisor. The internet is a vast world. It's really wide and really deep, and there's lots of information out there. I think you can become overloaded with the information. So being able to be referred to an advisor who can take you through a plan that fits your life. There are a lot of companies and a lot of organizations that sort of give you templated or cookie cutter plans, but you and I may live in the same neighborhood, make the same amount of money, and have the same situation, but just need different plans. So a successful plan really has to cover sort of 4 things for you. One, it has to allow you to build maximum wealth. Okay. 2, it has to allow you to be able to spend your money today as well as in the future without any fear. The number one thing that I run into with clients that have a lot of money is that they've never been advised on how can they enjoy it. So people who have millions of dollars often come to me and say, I'm not sure how much I can spend because it has to last me for the rest of my life. And shucks, people are living longer.
Correct.
3, it has to allow you to transfer your wealth to your heirs with instructions. Because I believe Abraham Lincoln said the worst thing we could do for our kids is what they could do for themselves. But we do want to give them sort of a leg up to have a better start than we did. So giving them a lot of money may not be the best thing, but giving them money to help them with instructions. If you're setting up a business plan and you're going to get a loan from a bank and you need a down payment, then you may be able to get it that way. So it has to allow you to transfer your wealth. And 4, most importantly, it has to work in all scenarios. As long as you work, your plan has to work. It can't be really driven by the market or situations. It has to cover those 4 things. Building maximum wealth, allowing you to spend your money today as well as tomorrow, and also being able to transfer your wealth and then work in all scenarios.
Okay. And in setting up this successful plan, who all should be involved in this?
I think a lot of times people get advice sort of in silos. You may have an attorney that you work with. You may have a real estate agent or a mortgage person or a CPA or even your HR director that you work with. I think when it comes to building a successful financial plan, you definitely want to make sure the stakeholders, if it's a family, the husband and wife together, and a lot of times you'll have one spouse or the other says, I handle all of the financial decisions, and my spouse pretty much just goes along with the decisions that I make. But I think it's really important when you're talking about the rest of your life, your finances, they're like second to your health. Having everybody in the room at the same time, and then having a conversation of how do all of the different parts of my life work together in concert for the purpose of your family and wherever your future jointly is designed or wherever you want to see it go. So that's what I would think. All of the people that are going to be involved in the major decisions need to be there. And a good advisor shouldn't be afraid of saying, let's get your CPA together. Let's talk to your real estate or your mortgage person. Let me see what your benefits are at your job so that we can see if they're all working in together, in concert with each other.
All right. And we're going to come back to that and right after the break. But we're going to take a short break. But before we go, I would like to share with you some information about the free financial education classes offered by First Home Alliance and encourage you to register to attend. Our class topics include setting your financial goals, managing your money, paying yourself first, restoring credit, establishing and maintaining good credit, understanding net worth, and most importantly, obtaining your financial fitness goal. First Home Alliance is a not-for-profit HUD-approved housing counseling agency serving Northern Virginia and the National Capital Area. You can also find HUD-approved agencies in your area that conduct these classes free of charge by searching the HUD website at www.hud.gov. And please don't forget about our free first-time homebuyer class held every third Saturday of each month. We will be right back after the break with more on financial planning. Stay tuned.
Start living the dream of home ownership with help from First Home Alliance. Free orientation classes are held the third Saturday of each month from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and lunch will be served. Classes include topics like personal finance, credit issues, the lending process, the role of the agent, home inspection, and loan closing. Don't wait. Call First Home Alliance today to register or go to firsthomealliance.org for more information and start your dream of home ownership today.
Welcome back. You are watching Rock Your Block and today's segment of First Home Alliance with our special guest, Randy Jones. Randy, right before the break there, we was talking about a successful plan. And I know with all plans, you run into obstacles. Could you share some of the challenges we may run into when setting up that financial plan?
Well, Larry, I think that's a good question. I wasn't born a financial advisor. And so for many years, I got a lot of advice from different advisors. And I think the challenge that you ran into was, a person would ask you, well, how much money do you think you need to have in retirement? And you would give them some dollar amount. And they would say then, well, how much income do you think you're going to be making from year to year or money on deposit? And then they say, well, how long do you think you're going to work? And basically through that, that formula, it's called the wealth accumulation equation. You would come up with some type of rate of return, and then you have a whole list of things that you can pick from. Well, the challenge in that is that, and I'll even ask you, what is the weather going to be next Friday?
Not sure.
How much is bread, milk, and butter going to cost 2.5 years from now?
That's a hard one.
So I think the challenge in it is, first, from an institutional standpoint, as far as advisors, we often ask our clients questions to build a plan that no one really has the answer on. And some people may look at it from a worst case scenario, but I think the problem with that is that you wouldn't even want to build the worst plan on the worst case scenario if it was all based on unknowns, variables, and guesses, correct?
Correct.
So I think a lot of times, like I said earlier, setting up the pattern of how do we create a savings habit is first and foremost in any plan. The challenge with that is most people, at the end of the month, they only have a certain amount of money. We talk about saving 15 to 20%, and I can be honest with you. Most of my clients, when they come in first, they're only saving usually 5 to 10%, and they're putting it all in their 401k or something. The biggest part of being able to save more money is to find your money. I think, you have people create a budget. But I think a budget is sort of a negative way, because what it does is make you chase debt. It makes you say, how much debt do I have? And then how much money do I need to pay that debt? The other way of doing it is creating a spending plan. How much money do I earn? How am I spending it? When you set a true spending plan, what you're doing is allocating a certain amount of money for your normal household maintenance bills, a certain amount of money for car gas, a certain amount of money for groceries. We have children. A certain amount of money just for lifestyle. And how am I going to spend the money that I receive so that I can meet these goals? If you work from a spending plan, and a lot of times people say, well, I don't know how to get started. Something very easy to do. When you create a spending plan, know how much, take example, for if you get gas for your car. $50 or $60 a week will fill up a small car tank usually. If you have an SUV, it might be more.
Yes.
But being able to track that and say, hey, we're only going to spend $200 a month on gas. And then if you run into a position or a situation where we've exceeded our budget or our spending amount of $200, now you can have a place to work from as far as a starting point to assess how are we driving, how are we assessing our gas requirements and things like that. It makes it a whole lot easier for you to track and find where things are. So I think the first thing is becoming, aware of what your numbers are and where they are. You can use the envelope method, where you write on the outside of an envelope groceries, kids' activities, clothes, gas, and you put the dollar amount on there. It's really clean and clear to be able to open up the envelope and see I have $100 left.
Okay.
It's really hard to run past something like that. Some of the other challenges that people have is, more people are working for large refunds on their tax returns, but we're tight on cash flow. The number one thing that you need to do is increase your cash flow through the year. You hear people say, well, why give, the IRS a tax-free loan? I think some people call it a forced savings account, but we're adults. We have to take some type of responsibility for our own lives. You think about it. If people can truly live 100 years nowadays, right? And they're thinking about them living even longer just due to the modernization of medicine, and you can work up until age 65. What are you doing between the time you come out of college and you start working, that 25 to 35 year period that's going to get you prepared for the next 35 to 40 years without a paycheck? You could actually be retired longer than the time period that you worked. So what are we doing in that time period to be able to get ourselves prepared? And I think that's where a lot of the personal responsibility comes from.
Right. And what would be your suggestion in preparing for crisis within that plan?
So one thing that I would say is that everybody needs to have a 1-year reserve account, but how do you get to that? The first thing is, build yourself a spending plan. The number one thing that I would say that you need to be able to do is to live off of 80% of your income.
Okay.
Because that's the only way that we're going to start to be able to put any money away. More people are focused on getting out of debt, but then I would ask them, how did you get there? It was because we had no money saved. So when I explain to people about, the crisis of being able to get out of debt, or the crisis of being able to, handle the unexpected, the first thing we must do is save, because you cannot get out of debt if you don't save money. An example is if you have a $1,000 credit card and you pay it down, but you don't have any money in the, in the bank, and all of a sudden you need tires for your car. Where does the money come from? It has to come from your credit cards. So the only way that we can truly get out of debt and be in control of our life financially is to first start to save. And that helps us prepare by having a reserve account to deal with those certain crises.
Okay. And I would like to share with us, for someone that is actually getting started, and what are the 5 things you suggest for a person getting started on a financial plan? What should they do?
Well, here are the 5 steps that I do with my client. I say the first thing we must do is become organized. Most people's financial lives, you hear having a diversified plan, but most people have a dispersed plan. Mm-hmm. They have multiple bank accounts, money here, money there, and they're not able to keep track of all of it. It's just like coming into a room. I have kids, and sometimes their clothes are all over the floor. And I say, you really can't think and you can't see what's in here with all this mess around you. So we first need to get organized and put things in its proper place so that we can truly assess what we have as well as what we don't have. The second thing that we need to do is make sure that we have maximum protection, because your wealth is not with you today. It is what your potential to earn in the future is. So how do we protect ourselves so that we can also make sure that we can continue to earn? And that's where a lot of the different insurances, disability and life insurance and all the other type of insurances, auto and home insurance and umbrella insurance come in, to make sure that we can protect ourselves. Because the number one asset that people have, people think it's their home. It's not. It's their ability to earn an income.
Correct.
Nothing happens without you being able to go to work or do something that earns an income. The third thing that I would say is to work really hard with the spending plan so that you can have that 1-year reserve. And then once you have that pattern set, how do you do number 4 as far as maximizing your savings to get to a minimum of 15 to 20%? And then after that, then I would say we need to focus on eliminating all of our short-term debt. Short-term debt. Sometimes it's okay to have a mortgage because really we want to make sure that we can keep the money that we have, and some of the write-offs that we have with our house keep our tax rates a little bit lower. And of course, what do you think taxes are going to do in the future?
So they're going to increase.
They're going to increase. Yes. So those would be the 5 things that I would say. Get organized, make sure you have maximum protection, have your 1-year reserve, get on your path to saving 15 to 20%, and then eliminate your debt.
All right. And so this plan, would you, how would a person go about contacting a financial advisor, or what would you suggest them to find someone that can help them?
Definitely. Have someone that, has dealt with an advisor to refer one to you. Of course, what we do in our firm, because we receive the majority of our business from referrals, but we also teach a lot of classes and seminars. Go to a couple of classes and seminars and see if the information that people are giving you makes sense to you. The financial world does not have to be complicated. 2 + 2 = 4. And anybody that you're working with shouldn't be so busy to tell you how much they know, but really taking the time to make things simple enough so that you know what's happening and you totally understand. I think a lot of people get advisors who give them advice and nobody really understands it, but they're afraid to say, I don't know if that's right or wrong, because the other person is really busy to showing them how smart they are. Mm-hmm. Find a local advisor, somebody that's close to you and has a reputable reputation. A lot of times people say, well, get this person who has this degree or that degree. I think being educated is key in any job that you have, especially this job. But degrees don't always make people great advisors as well. And certifications don't make them great advisors. Make sure that whatever advice that they're giving to you makes real sense to you. And no matter how complicated the situation is, that they can truly explain it on a level that you understand it and you don't leave the meeting feeling like you were confused or talked above your head.
Okay. Well, what are some of the certifications that an advisor may have?
You could become a certified financial advisor, a CFA. You could become a CFP, a certified financial planner. There's chartered life underwriters. There are lots of different designated. You can be a a specialist in long-term care or retirement planning. I think when it comes to advising clients, more people are told how to accumulate their wealth. But the biggest part, the reason why we build our retirement or have a plan is because someday we will need to spend that money.
Okay.
And I think a lot of advisors are not doing the justice to their client and giving them a distribution plan. So that's what I would say.
Okay. We're about 2 minutes before our closing. And Randy, I want to thank you for coming on to the show.
No problem.
And sharing all the great information on financial planning. And I look forward to talking to you again. I hope our guest today has answered many of your questions on financial planning. If you have any additional questions or concerns about financial planning, just contact Randy Jones at First Financial Group and get your questions answered. Next, I would like to share with you a question from our inbox. This is where we share a question sent to us from our viewing audience in reference to housing and financial education as it relates to homeownership. Today's question comes from Woodbridge. How long does it take to restore your credit? Well, it depends on what damage was done and how willing you are to change your credit behavior. But basically 6 to 12 months is enough time to recover and get back on track with good credit. Remember, your credit wasn't wrecked in one day. It was over a period of time, so it will not be restored overnight. First Home Alliance is conducting a financial literacy education experience boot camp known as Flex Boot Camp. It is a pilot program where we're seeking applicants that are willing and serious about getting into financial shape. You must be willing to commit for 12 months, covering 10 financial education modules and receiving monthly confidential one-on-one financial coaching sessions to help you reach your financial goal. If you're interested, please visit our website for more information. If you have questions concerning financial education or homeownership, simply email your question to our inbox at help@firsthomealliance.org and tune into our next section to see if your question was selected to be shared with our audience. If you want to find out more about the services that First Home Alliance provide to the community, visit our website. Thank you for watching Rock Your Block in today's segment of First Home Alliance. I am Larry Laws, reminding you that we're here to empower you with knowledge to help you successfully live the dream of homeownership.